Hello and welcome to On the Corner, the official podcastpitchers.com. I'm your host, Eric Samolsky, and it is time, ladies and gentlemen. It's time. We're on the cusp of this fine gentleman here, Nick Pollock, releasing his top. Is it two? We're going 200, 400. You're going 400, aren't you? His top 400.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. His top 400
So
starting
dumb.
pitchers. So we are going to start breaking them down 5 by 5. Episode by episode as we get through not all 400, but at least the top 100. And then we'll go from there. Nick, I'm sure this has not been a stressful endeavor for you in the slightest.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Guys, look, what is happening, first of all? Second, I know this has been a little more delayed than usual. I apologize. There's just been a lot more going on. And it's exciting stuff. And we're looking forward to telling you about that soon. But yeah, my top 400 should probably be out. My goal is February 18th. So a week from tomorrow. I was recording this on Monday. And I'm going to be going through so much stuff in the next week or so. My brain's going to be fried, and I can't wait. And even making this for today, getting down a top 25, I still don't feel great about it yet. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, guys. We have one massive benefit on our side. We have an FSWA nominated Baseball Writer of the Year with us. And that is Eric Samolsky.
Yes. Weren't you nominated for it last year?
I was. I won it the year before that. But I wasn't last year. You know, right. This is current. Everyone cares about the now, not the past. I'm the man of the past. You're the man of the future, Eric.
Are you? Well, or never. I guess we'll have to find out and see. I could be a man of never.
Oh man, well, no, congratulations, Eric. So well deserved. You do such incredible work at NBC, and you're constantly churning out not just articles, but quality articles that are worth everyone's time. They are long, they are thoughtful, they are smart. So great stuff, Eric. Well deserved.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Obviously, the work in the last few years has been benefited by you and Kyle Bland, and the great information at the fingertips.
It's you.
But yeah, no, it's honestly, like, I know, people joke about like it's an honor to be nominated. That whole thing when we get to the awards circuit that we're in now with like Hollywood and stuff too. But it's nice to it's an imperfect system, but it's nice to know that people are reading and appreciating your work. And so thank you. It's cool, and I'm gonna keep doing it whether the nominations come in or not. So yeah, check out all that stuff over on NBC Sports, and we're starting up, man. I mean, that other sport is finished. Pitchers and catchers are reporting this week.
Finally,
we are in it now, people. We are in baseball season. We were before; it was always baseball season, but now it's baseball season for everybody. And hopefully you've been listening to our shows and you have a little bit of a leg up on some of those people just tuning in, but we're going to give you even more of a leg up as we continue to go through your top one. Let's talk top 100. We're going to start with the top 5. And are you ready to dive in right now?
I am. And it's Tarek Skubal, guys. There you go. It's Tarek Skubal.
That's a shock. That is a shock.
It's funny. I did my write-up on... You guys understand how I'm going through all these pitchers, right? I'm actually going team by team first and not really doing the ranking first. And then as I do the team, then I kind of say, well, I like this guy more than that guy, one by one. And I go through it all. However, I'm not done with all the teams, which means I'm not done with every pitcher inside the top 25, top 50. So I had to write a lot of these this morning before this podcast out of order. And I found myself doing Tarek Skubal and not loving it as much as I wanted. I know that sounds so weird. But Tarek Skubal, I think, has an amazing changeup against right-handers. That's great. The slider and the sinker are strange to me against lefties. He doesn't pinpoint them as well as I would hope that he would. And the slider, at times, he puts it where he's supposed to with 2 strikes. Not 2 strikes. It's very much hung up in the zone. However, their ICRs on both were exceptional. 18% on the sinker to lefties for Tarek Skubal, and then the slider was like 22% against lefties. I think that's going to regress. I don't think that's going to stick around. So that's going to be a major thing I'm going to focus on for Tarek Skubal during the season. Sinkers inside, hopefully the lefties actually getting it there instead of somewhat sneaking over the plate. Actually really good against righties. He did front hip sinkers to them with 2 strikes, and it worked too, because he needed to do that. duh. But and then the slider, of course, needs to be a little bit more consistent, going down and away and not really hanging in the zone. But the four-seamer does really, really well against right-handers, and then the changeup underneath that is so good. He's an all-around just, he's going to go 6 innings every time. You're going to get good ratios with a 30% strikeout rate around there.
Mm-hmm.
The Tigers are going to win enough games. Like, I'm looking at this saying, okay, who is the total package and the most secure one of that? And it's Tarik Skubal, so he's SP1.
Yep, I agree with you. He is my SP1, and I could tell you I can't see any scenario where I'm drafting him. I just think that's like a little bit of the nature of where we're at right now is, I'm currently in a draft. I know draft and hold formats are different, but I'm currently in an NFBC slow draft and hold. I've completed 5 picks. I've completed 5 rounds. I have not drafted a starting pitcher yet. And there's a good chance that when it comes back to me in the 6th round, I'm going to get somebody that I like. There are a lot of starting pitchers still on the board that, like, sure, maybe it's a, Dylan Cease, Aaron Nola type of starting pitcher 1, but like, I don't know that those guys are so much worse than the guys you're going to put in the top 5, that if you're going to get that player 5 rounds later and you can load up on hitters, you're freaking out. I love Skubal. I'm not wasting. I don't want to say wasting. I'm not using a 1st round pick on him. And maybe it'll come back and bite me, but this is not where I'm at right now. I think I know you're in the same boat because we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah. So what's interesting too is that if you guys don't know this, if you have PL Pro, you have so many apps that we've made. Kyle made this great one, the NFBC ADP chart, which is the trends. But it also, what I just requested is for him to have it positioned out. So instead of that Google sheet that I gave you guys, well, we've also got this inside of an app where the ADP rank is just there. So you can just change position and SP, which takes out relievers, and you'll see all of the starting pitchers in order.
Yeah.
So you've got Skeens still has 1 over Tarik Skubal. And my number 3 is also, actually my number 2 is the 5th off the board. And that is Garrett Crochet.
Yes, this is your hot take, your bold
take.
Is it
though?
Well, it is only in the sense, I think a lot of, well, first of all, we'll talk about some other criticisms later. I think most people have settled on Crochet, at least in the top 10, most people in the top 5. But I think right now, I would say the vast majority of people believe Skeens and Skubal are 1 and 2. And so I believe it's a little bit of a mini hot take to suggest that Skeens is not in the top 2. And you won't have to wait a long time to hear where Nick's going to talk about Skeens. But yeah, Crochet has leapfrogged him right now.
I mean, Crochet just has, I'll put it this way. What you want out of your best starter in the majors is you have a fastball that guys just can't hit. And he throws for strikes and guys just struggle with it. Its striker is 60%. It's 98th percentile. And I'm going to tell you right now, striker is easily the best indication, just instantly like, oh, cool. Yeah, right. It gets strikes and it doesn't allow hard contact. Sweet. Things are great. And also it has a 99th percentile swing striker, which wasn't even in consideration with striker. Like, it's just such a good fastball from Garrett Crochet. He pounds the zone with that. And the second thing that you want your stud starter to have is a secondary pitch that he also throws for strikes and gets whiffs with. And he does that incessantly. And that's also his cutter, which is pretty much the same thing. 70% strike rate with a 19% swinging strike rate. Slightly higher ICR, so the striker isn't as good. But dang, it's just, that's the kind of guy you want. It's why Garrett Crochet has a 5% walk rate. And he's going to have a low hit rate too. He's going to get more wins because it's the Red Sox. He's going to be able to go 6 innings properly finally. And they just set him up. The White Sox did everything you could ever wish for from a team to allow a guy to be extended to go every 5 days at 6 innings now after going 145. Last year, he pitched the entire year, 32 starts, but they were limited at the end. So they won't be limited this year. It's such a, I don't know, clear cut. Yes, here is the dude. Go get him with Crochet. And the knock against Skeens and why Skeens isn't here instead is because his fastball doesn't miss bats.
Right.
It's shocking. I know this guy that throws a hundo, like you would think, oh man, they're going to miss this every time. No, it is a fastball that has horizontal movement. And with Garrett Crochet, the extension is what makes him so difficult. Where it's 97 miles per hour and it comes with 7.1 feet of extension. You're going to see a lot of guys inside of my top 20 with elite extension at 7 feet or so. By the way, did you know that Pablo Lopez is 7.2 feet of extension? I didn't. I totally forgot that point. But that's why his fastball gets a lot of swing and miss potential, right?
Mhm.
And with Garrett Crochet, it's just like incessant, done. Fastball cutter, you can't hit it, doesn't matter. Oh, I also have a sinker now that I'm working on. Great, cool. It's just easier. It's simple. It requires less out of Crochet to have a successful start in a given day than Skeens, who has to have his splinker working, which was, I think, the big shock for me, is because we were talking about this four-seamer being, well, hold on, it might not get as many whiffs, and it didn't, but the splinker showed up, and that's really 94 mile per hour. Think of it just like as the cutter, where it's the same velocity. Sorry, it's like it looks the same, but then it's just lower velocity with movement. And I get a feeling that Skeens is going to have a little more variance in that splinker in the year ahead. I think Skeens also should be using his four-seamer more as a sinker, in the sense of going inside to right-handers. What he did last year to lower the whiff rate is so interesting. He's throwing it away to right-handers a bit, and what that does, and to lefties as well, and what it does, it means that when they're late on it, the ball is moving away from the handle toward the barrel, as opposed to, and if you get too far away from it to left-handers or to right-handers, I guess then you'll be going from the barrel to the end of the bat, but not really how Skeens was using it. So I think that shift needs to happen with Skeens. I trust Garrett Crochet's command more. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for him to consistently find strikes. And also with Skeens, he doesn't have a great breaking ball. I'm shocked about this. So I look, PLV has the projections of Paul Skeens at like 26% K rate or so, which is weird, right? We all were like, no, this is a 35% strikeout guy. It makes sense for Skeens.
28.1%.
It makes sense because it's not a fastball that gets a 16-17% swing strike rate.
Yeah. To your point, the PLV projections I have pulled up, Skeens 28.1% strikeout rate, but Crochet 30.8% strikeout rate. So that's almost a 3% better strikeout rate predicted from Crochet to Skeens. Crochet predicted for a 2.82 ERA. Skeens, oh sorry, that is not correct. That's a walk rate. Crochet predicted for a 3.10 ERA and Skeens 3.04. Their Crochet projected for a better whip.
Definitely, because the walk rate should be lower as well. Right. And I also, the tiebreaker,
Crochet had a better team, so probably more wins.
Exactly. So
I can see it. I see that. I know that people push back because like Crochet was a reliever. He only has 1 year as a starter. Can he get extended? Whatever. I think there are similar questions with Skeens, right? Only 1 year as an MLB starter. How does he adapt? Like
is it the Spencer Strider injury thing?
Right. And you know, we again, I mentioned a lot of people push back on Crochet's second half. You and I have talked about it ad nauseum and how people need to ignore it. I'll just mention that again. I still have Skeens ahead of Crochet in my rankings, but I understand everything that you're saying. I get it. It makes total sense to me. And I think, you know, when you and I did that episode where we made like our own pitcher leaderboard and we used the percentile finishes for pitchers in terms of their swinging strike rate, their PLV, and their striker. And Crochet was the only pitcher in all of baseball to finish top 10th percentile in the league of starting pitchers in all three of those categories. And that just speaks to that upside. And amazing. So, yeah, I get it. I buy it. I'm in on it. I'm in on both of these guys. Crochet obviously more likely to get draft shares of, since he's currently going 5th off the board. And that's behind the two pitchers who we'll talk about next after this break. So rounding out your top 5 are two, we'll call them both veterans. Dependable, solid veterans, guys you have no issue taking inside of the top 5. I don't know if you want to talk about them together or or differentiate.
I'll talk about them separate a little bit. So the first one is Zach Wheeler, and man, I love Zach Wheeler. He's so interesting. It's an extension guy. Again, what do you know? He takes advantage of it with a four-seamer at the top of the zone with a sinker that goes into right-handers. This is something I've been talking about for ages with Zach Wheeler. His O swing on his sinker is, you just don't see this consistency. It was actually at its lowest I've seen in the last 5 years at 41%. That's amazing because it was 50% in previous years. Or 43, 47, doesn't matter. An O swing on the sinker means you're getting inside to your same-handed batted opponent, and it's so good. It just gets so many outs. 27% ICR. It only has one season above a 30% ICR, and that was 30.4, which is crazy for a pitch you throw as often as he does. Right. Now, it's also the same amount of usage for the four-seamer and the sinker against right-handers. That's the whole game plan, is you throw the four-seamer upstairs and utilize 8 inches of different movement, both vertically and horizontally with the sinker. Guys don't know what it is. It comes in too hard at 94, 95, 96. And with this extension, that they can't figure out which is which. So the four-seamer gets whiffs, sinker gets outs. It's that easy. There's also a sweeper in there for Zach Wheeler. That's good. It's a good mix-up pitch. He gets in there for a CSW 28%, but also a 22% ICR with fair number of strikes, 61%. All good. They can't hit it in play effectively. He gets off strikes with it. There you go. Righties are done. Lefties, hi. Lefties have always been the weird thing for Zach Wheeler. He's gone through like 7 pitches to try and figure out what to do with them. Sometimes it's a cutter or a curveball. He's got the sweeper. Maybe it's an actual traditional slider, a traditional changeup. He's now trying splitters a bit more, and I don't really love any of it. The four-seamer is still very effective, and that's really good to hear because the four-seamer can just pump in there. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. It's all going to be okay. 41% ICR, yeah, but 13% swing strike rate, 68% strike rate. You have whiffs, you have some outs. Hopefully there's something to help. And he does have the sweeper for called strikes. It's the only knock I have against Zach Wheeler, that there really isn't this amazing approach against lefties. It is weird to see a 65% strike rate on that sweeper, but it's only 4% usage. It's really cutters getting in there a bit, but low strike rate, under 60%, but good ICR. Honestly, if Zach Wheeler had a very definitive way to get out lefties, like if he had that changeup that we just would love, the splitter is only 11% usage, really more of a surprise pitch, then he would be SP1. The fact he doesn't, he's still trying to tinker and figure that out. Fine. You're not SP1 here. You're just going to settle for SP4 as someone who's going to be above a 25% strikeout rate. You're going to go every 5 days. You're going to be good ratios and wins. And really, it's just, I took Wheeler at this point with the next guy because I feel as if they're the last two that could just be this 4 category stud. They don't save games. Yeah. But I mean, I want to say 5 in the sense of that they are expressed over more innings with volume. There's a difference if a guy goes 5 innings with this stuff and then 6 because you get 20% more production of that ERA and WHIP, right?
Just to before you talk about that next guy, I just think Wheeler is a really nice lesson for all of us, that when we have young pitchers who are deemed injury prone, and that they're unable to, they don't have the kind of durability to throw lots of innings, that doesn't mean that they will always be that. Sometimes pitchers can, right? Sometimes you got soft tissue injuries, you've got mechanical things, you've got guys like Glass now who are 6'8", and it's just like hard to get the body working together, and so that could lead to consistent injuries. But the Mets worried that Wheeler would not be consistently healthy, right? Wheeler missed multiple years in the middle of his Mets career after his second pro season. Then he had 2 relatively healthy seasons to end his Mets tenure, and they didn't want to sign him to a long-term deal because they didn't think that he was going to be a workhorse. He was going to be able to throw that, a huge number of innings. And Wheeler his first year in Philly was the COVID year, and obviously we know that was a shortened season. But since then, he's thrown over 192 innings in 3 of the 4 years, and he's thrown over 192 innings in 4 of the last 5 full seasons. And I think that would have shocked a lot of people in 2017, 2018 or whatever. So, we've started to see that a little bit with Pablo Lopez. Oh, he's an injury prone guy when he was in Miami. He's not going to be durable. That has started to change. So it's just my way of like reminding you that it doesn't always have to be that way. One season maybe isn't enough to just say, oh, this guy's injury concerns are gone. But injury durability concerns can be waylaid as pitchers get older and they change things about their mechanics or their body type or their routine or whatever. So just early career narratives can shift. Make sure we shift with them.
Absolutely. And the next guy really isn't a injury prone guy at all. We haven't seen it.
Well, some people want to argue that he could be this year.
What do you want to argue, guys? Okay, which do you want? Do you want the ones who have gotten a lot of workload, so thus they are due, or do you want the ones who have been hurt but now they are healthy? Like, we can't win. There's no way for us to really understand it, which is honestly why you're going to see in my rankings that I'm more aggressive, I think, on injured guys than others, but maybe I'm not. We'll see. But it's Corbin Burnes. And I know some people want some guy named Logan over here, but Corbin Burnes to me is so underrated still. His worst season in 5 years is a 3.39 ERA with every other season underneath a 3 ERA. What? His whip last year was 110, which is the worst of his career since 2019, when he was still figuring out what is going on. 2020 is when he actually showed up. Yes, his strikeout rate fell to 23%. And that is really the biggest pushback you're going to see. And that makes all the sense because, that was worrisome and not the guy that we know. Thing is, Corbin Burnes did two things that I liked last year. One, his slider was utilized more against right-handers, and that is a 26% swing strike rate pitcher, something ridiculous. To right-handers, always has. It's been an effective pitch for him. It's just, things are great. Okay, it's actually 27%. Oh, cool, awesome. The second thing is that by the end of the year, at the end of August, he changed his cutter finally. And this is the thing that I've been watching Corbin Burnes and been waiting for him to get back is the cutter. The vertical break on it was lessened. And that not just meant that it wasn't missing as many bats. It was also where it was landing was worse. He was essentially doing the same thing, but then instead of it landing down, it was landing middle and became much more hittable and just not the foundation that he needed it to be. So Corbin Burnes actually added the vertical break back and then some and had a much better end of the season. That cutter was missing bats at near 15%, swing strike rate all of a sudden after being around an 8-9% previously. He all of a sudden went from about a 42% low location to about 55% all of a sudden. This was a much, much better cutter. And with that foundation, I am so ready to jump in here. Not to mention, even with that 23% K rate, that's still a great season. I mean, yes, 180 strikeouts, not 200 plus or so, but 292 ERA, 110 whip, made 32 starts. So it was a 15-win season, which honestly, he's going to the Diamondbacks, and that's a great situation. That was the number 2 defense and outs above average last year. It's notoriously been a great defense. It's what's helped Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen as well.
Slight downgrade at first with Walker leaving, but obviously if you're going to downgrade at any position in the infield, that's the position 100%. To downgrade at.
And so I feel as if this is a great scenario for Burnes. They're not going to underpitch him. If anything, they're going to overpitch him, which is what you want, right? They're going to let him have a good long leash as they traditionally do in Arizona. I'm a fan of this. I feel, again, as I'm looking at my top 5, my first tier, who are the ones that are just stable and give you everything? And I would be shocked if we saw a 23% strikeout rate again from Corbin Burnes this year. I would expect it to be closer to 26, 27. And that is right in line with Zach Wheeler. It would make you incredibly happy as a fantasy manager.
Yeah. I'm glad you addressed the cutter issue. That was the issue that a lot of people are still talking about, because for much of the year, the cutter was not what we had come to expect, but we have to understand that things change. And this isn't a guy figuring out a pitch he had never thrown before and like having one good month. This is a guy who had relied on the cutter for a very long time, making changes to that pitch to get it back to levels we have expected before. And so I think we can take that small sample size with a little bit more than just a grain of salt, as opposed to, hey, he messed around with this new pitch and it looked really good. The Bowden Francis splitter thing, right? This is a guy who is a cutter pitcher who figured out the cutter.
The last
this is my exact top 5, a slightly different order, but the exact top 5.
The last blurb I wrote for Corbin Burns in the SP roundup this year was, the cutter is so back, y'all. I think I have to put him in the top 5 SP next year, given the pitch's resurgence. I'm consistent, if anything, Okay. All right. So here we go. That's our top 5. We've got one more in that top tier, though, don't we?
We do. And we're going to get to that guy in the next episode of On the Corner. So make sure you tune in to check that out, 5 guys at a time, as we go through Nick's top 100. I'm Eric Smolsky, the Pelican.
I'm Nick Pollock, the Lion.
And we'll check you on the next episode of On the Corner. I'm going to start this at 26, just for the purposes of.
I see. Yeah, that's good. All right. I'm cool with this. Do I really want that guy there? I'm going to do it. Yeah.
You got to keep it. It's too late now. Hello and welcome to On the Corner. I'm your host, Eric Smolsky, joined by the man himself, Nick Pollock, as we continue going through his top 400 starting pitchers. Obviously, we are not going to cover all 400 here.
No.
Nick will have all 400 up in written form, so you can make sure you check all that out. We're going to go through about the top 100. We're hitting pitchers 6 through 10 today. Nick, anything you want to talk about before we jump right in with these guys?
Don't hate me, y'all.
Don't.
Okay.
Remember, rankings are used to help you to formulate your own thoughts and opinions, where we give our thoughts and opinions. They should not be treated as gospel. We can't predict the future. We're just doing our best to rank guys. And again, reminder that Nick and I both rank for 12-team leagues. So that will maybe change how you look at the rankings. So yeah, keep that in mind. The pitcher that starts this episode, number 6, is one of the final guys in the studs tier that Nick has, which included all of the top 5 pitchers. Top 5, Roterick Skubal, Garrett Crochet, Paul Skeens, Zach Wheeler, Corbin Burns, and Nick, who rounds out the studs tier, your number 6 overall starting pitcher.
The most polarizing pitcher entering drafts this year, and that is Jacob deGrom. Oh my gosh, Nick, how could you possibly do this? He's gonna get injured. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So, I know you're upset. I know you're angry. And you know what? This is what I'm going to say. If you don't feel comfortable taking Jacob deGrom, then don't take Jacob deGrom. You don't need to follow this. You don't need to. It's fine. I get it. Here are my reasonings for it. 1, Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher on the planet when he's pitching. I don't care about all those other guys. Okay? He is the best pitcher on the planet, but he's not the same quality. Yes, he is. We have that data for him last year. His PLV on his 4-seamer in that small sample size was 5.81. He has the same height adjusted VA, the same extension, the same vert, the same horizontal break on that fastball. It's the same guy. Okay. And we saw it. We're not going just completely blind. We know that Jacob deGrom is Jacob deGrom right now. The second thing is that the injury history we like to talk about with Jacob deGrom only started in 2021. It did not start before then. We had 3 straight seasons of 200 innings and then 148 and 191. This was a guy who was a workhorse, went all 12 starts in 2020 easily. And then he had problems 21, 22, 23, 24, right? Well, 24 was him healing from Tommy John. 23 was the same Tommy John. So 21 and 22. And there was a precursor to Tommy John in there. I believe there was one other issue. That is Jacob deGrom. I'm willing to tell you right now that his elbow is healthier than a lot of the guys inside this top 10 that we might not know about right now, because he just got his repaired and it's working and it's good. The other thing I really want to emphasize is that in your 12 teamers, and this is ranking for 12 teamers,
right? I
love taking Jacob deGrom because he's going to be healthy out of the gate. He's going to be producing. And then when he's not pitching, if you want to predict about innings versus other guys, his innings are either going to be every 5 days and then stop and you replace it. And you have a roster spot open now to replace with someone else. It's not like, say, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who is going to be on a 6-man rotation. They're going to manage his innings, make sure he's ready for the playoffs. And it's going to be 150 innings or so, but you won't get to replace him at any point in this season.
Right.
Same thing with Shohei Ohtani. You won't get an IL spot for Shohei Ohtani when he's recovering from his. So that is the big difference maker with Jacob deGrom. Not only are you getting these innings that are of quality, of the best quality you could hope for, you're also getting that roster spot for whoever you pick up off the waiver wire, which is, by the way, the deepest waiver wire I've seen in any preseason so far.
Right.
It's such a good scenario. And everybody in like on May 1st is going to say, why didn't I draft Jacob deGrom? I hate this because he's healthy and he's killing it. And you're going to feel so much FOMO. So yeah, I know that he's going to go up higher in drafts once we see Jacob deGrom pitching regularly in the spring and there are no signs. And I'm taking a bit of that risk as well. But hot dang, there's no one that's just like, you put him on the mound and you know you're going to get production more so than Jacob deGrom. Just do it.
Yeah.
Draft him.
Yeah. And again, format dependent, right? You're in a 15 or you're in a draft and hold and there's no waiver wire or whatever. We get it. But yes, a reminder that Jacob deGrom already has a season where he's thrown sub 100 innings and finished as the best pitcher in fantasy baseball. He can do it. He has done it. Will he do it again? It's unlikely, but taking him 6th means he doesn't have to be the best pitcher in fantasy baseball. So yeah, fully agree. Particular if you have an IL spot, he's a great draft pick. We're starting your next tier here with starting pitcher number 7, which is your ace is going to ace tier. So these are still guys you should have comfortably you could use comfortably as your SP1 in fantasy. This tier goes beyond this episode. A little bit, I was going to say a little bit of a surprising name at 7, just because I think last year we would have been surprised that this guy was ranked 7. However, where he's going in drafts right now, this is not a surprise. He is firmly the 6th or 7th starting pitcher off the board in most drafts. So who is your 7th starting pitcher?
This is really tough because I still don't know what the situation is in Seattle. And we all know at this point that T-Mobile Park is the anti-Coors. That it just helps pitching so much. And I initially had some assumption that Seattle is going to do something about it because so much noise was being made about how bad it is for hitters there. But I haven't heard anything yet. It's the middle of February, and Logan Gilbert just had an absurd season of a .89 whip and a 3.23 ERA that I got to say, all right, maybe it's going to be like this. Now, he also had it in 2023 a bit, and the hit per 9 dropped a full tick and a half from 8 hits per 9 innings to 6.4. And that's the biggest reason for the 108 whip to a .89. And I can just tell you right now, well, that .89 whip is not lasting. I think there's this really big sway for Logan Gilbert that he's all of a sudden going to be a sub 1 whip guy. And I actually remember after 2023 being like, I kind of see him more as a 110, 112 than the 108. But I could be very wrong on that. When I see Gilbert, I see the lead extension and yet still not capitalizing on it with his 4-seamer. He doesn't do the 4-seamer sinker play at all. He's just throwing sliders down, and it's the number 1 PLV slider. So that's good. It's a good thing to do, but sure. I've always wanted something extra from Gilbert that I haven't quite gotten. I don't really consider him a command guy. The reason I have him here, though, is because he has been a workhorse, 185, 190, 109 innings. He's going to be giving you at least a 24% K rate if it regresses to 2023's mark. But I imagine his slider emphasis suggests, hey, look, that's going to stick around, and hopefully I can figure out the fastball a little bit better. Hopefully I can figure out maybe a sinker in there to get some quicker outs to keep the hit per 9 down. The way I see it is that Gilbert shouldn't be far worse than last year. It just might normalize a little bit. And that's pretty cool. So really the SP landscape, as I stared at this for so long this morning, was like, I don't love anyone definitively inside like the top 20. After that initial tier of just studs, I'm looking at this going, do I really want to do this one? I guess, but like, but that. And
that's why we wait.
Just sat there. And I was like, yeah, I guess I have to put Gilbert at 7 after all of this.
I did as well. I had Gilbert at 10. He has slowly moved up. He is also my 7th for basically the same reasons you said, in terms of just like, yeah, I don't know how many shares I'm going to be getting, because I would be happy. He's going off the board 6th or 7th. And so I'd be happy to wait and get like my 13th ranked starter or 14th ranked starter, who I don't think is that much different. I will say it's mid-February. We haven't heard anything about them changing the batter's eye in T-Mobile Park. They also have not changed the construction of that roster at all. They added essentially no big-time hitters. So I don't understand why they would make a change to weaken the best part of their team, which is their starting rotation, at the expense of an offense that they did nothing to improve in the offseason. So my money is on the batter's eye remaining the same in Seattle, at least for this season. And then if they're not competing, over the summer, they may decide, okay, we actually need to make a shift to make this a more offensive friendly environment. And then we could see that. You have a little bit of a riser here. Your number 8 starter, only because there were pitchers after him that were ranked higher, not because this guy is necessarily shooting up your boards. But number 8 now is Cole Reagans.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the slight bump. I think you moved him up maybe like 2 or 3 spots since the last time we were talking.
So really, it's because I had to be a little bit lower down on Michael King. And when we talked in November, I think I was higher on George Kirby. I also had the injured guys, like Ohtani and McClanahan over here, and then news changed since then. And I could make a case for someone like Tyler Glasnow over here, and I might actually do that. I might even have Glasnow at 7 inside the studs tier as well. I think there's a lot more concern about Glasnow's 6-man rotation and just what the Dodgers are going to do to manipulate him to be healthy for the postseason this time around. That to me is like, okay. And also, does he get delayed? Does the elbow stuff come back in the spring, and then it's an unknown deadline or timeline? And that kind of risk is just the most frustrating thing in the world. If you drafted Brian Wu or Gavin Williams last year, you'll be very familiar with that, where it's supposed to be 1 week or 2, and then it turns into 4, and then you just don't know what you're supposed to plan for. Right. So that's why you don't have Tyler Glasnow there. I might have him higher, but at the end of the day, Cole Reagans is still dope and makes us feel dope. And looking at it from last year, I mean, I've obviously talked a ton about him in the past, but he has a 4-seamer and changeup that are amazing against right-handers. He did have his velocity drop a little bit as the year went on. I think that was just normal fatigue that you do see with guys going their first full year. He's described it as his lower half mechanics being a little off. I think that might be just fatigue in the lower half then. It comes in different ways. The biggest change is the slider. The slider needs to be back to what we saw in 2023 for me to be really excited. In 2023, that slider was a 72% strike rate overall, and it dropped to just a 57% in the past season. It wasn't as consistent to lefties. It was a sub 60% strike rate to lefties, which is the reason why he got it in the first place. And then against righties, he wasn't as good as he used to be at getting that low in the back foot slider. While the cutter, I think, actually is a really promising pitch and just isn't utilized exactly right. While we have this curveball, that 54% strike rate just can't be what its life is. It's a very obvious one. It's a big hook, and it falls in the zone for a 26% called strike rate, but it really shouldn't be the strike pitch that he's looking for. I think he gets himself into worse counts a lot because of it. It's just not what we want that to be. Now, the 4-seamer from Reagans, he's not an extension guy, but he does get elite horizontal movement on it, which is pretty dang cool. And that means that he can jam lefties a little bit more than he is with his 4-seamer. It means he can surprise front door and then play with that with the cutter against right-handers. And the changeup is elite still. So at the end of the day, I think this is a guy who has a great foundation of a 4-seamer changeup and has all the showcase of elite number 3, number 4 pitches in his cutter and his slider. I think it's something that just with more time, he continues to progress with it. He's even come out and said, like, yeah, I'm going to be throwing more strikes this year. He had a 9% walk rate last year. I think he did tried to nibble a little bit too much with the secondaries last year. Not necessarily the changeup and the four seamer, but just the slider and the cutter, trying to be a little too precise with it, and at times then just way too in the middle. So,
which in his defense, Paul Skeens said the same thing, that both Reagans and Skeens have openly said this offseason that they know they need to be more in the zone early in the count, that that some of the best pitchers are attack the strike zone more effectively, and they need to do that. I'm glad you mentioned Reagans next to King, because I want to hear why you're lower on King than you were before, because I have Michael King at 8 and Cole Reagans at 9. So I have them flipped from what you do.
I know. I'm sure I convinced you the other way before too, which is so funny.
Well, in our earlier episodes, I was like, everything about Michael King makes me think I should put him in the top 10, but it's Michael King. We've seen this 1 year. Like, how can I put him inside the top 10? We talked about it on the November show. We talked about it a little bit, more over the winter. And I was like, you know what? Yes. Like everything about this feels like a guy who's going to throw 180 innings on a team that, even though they're like selling off parts, will still be a pretty good team. It's not like the Padres are going to become bad. They might not be a World Series contender, but they should still be pretty good. And yeah, I'm a fan of what Michael King did last year with the Padres. I think the arsenal really checks out to be a starter. I know he had a rough start to the year, but then settled in and was pretty dominant. And so I feel pretty confident in what he's able to do. I don't think anything looked fluky. And I don't think that anything looks fluky with Reagans either. So I guess, I don't know. It's really kind of a coin flip for me between those two.
I would say that with King and Reagans' 1-2 punch of four-seamer changeup is better than King's 1-2 punch of sinker changeup. With King, he does have a sweeper as well against right-handers. I think both of them handle right-handers absurdly well. The thing is about left-handers, King really just has the changeup, and he utilizes the four-seamer too much. It's a bad four-seamer. It's one that he uses as a surprise pitch against righties. That's fine, but then he actually uses it more than the sinker against left-handers. And King's four-seamer gets hit a ton. He can't really throw the sweeper that often and effectively either. And there's not much of a solution at the moment for King to really attack guys. The changeup is elite and it's great. 36% usage last year, but it still needs a little bit more support. And that's really the showcase. You can even see it in his performances. It's a 31% K rate, I believe, against right-handers and a 24 against lefties. The walks all came against the lefties, 10% walk rate. And then overall it's an 8% walk rate, right? 8-9%. Right. So that's really the thing with King that has me a little more, maybe I'm wish casting that he's going to fix that problem. While with Reagans, okay, it's a four-seamer and a changeup. And then against lefties, yes, the slider needs to get more strikes, but it's still very effective against lefties. And so is that four-seamer. Even the changeup does work there too. The cutter helps too. There's more surrounding pieces that make me feel the floor is higher with Cole Reagans.
The only counter I'll give also is this is the non-analytical, the non-stat based analysis. But last year was Michael King's first year as a starter. He now has a whole off season to see what he did in his first year as a starter and try to tweak certain things in order to make himself more effective. So is that an argument that there could be a step of growth for King that we might not get for Reagans, because we've kind of seen this for Reagans? And yes, he could improve a pitch mix. He could improve a pitch. He could, as you talked about, get the slider back. But I think King could make more clear adjustments to the arsenal to fix exactly what you just said, because he now has sample size to adjust to that he didn't have before.
So you know what's interesting? 12 starts in 29 games in 2023 for Cole Reagans, 9 starts in 49 games for Michael King in 2023. So they both kind of had their first season.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
And you can also make an argument.
I will argue. I mean, Reagans was starting game. Wasn't he? I'll have to double check, but he was starting games in the minors that year. I mean, he spent the whole year as a starter.
No, there's a little bit extra for Reagans, but I'm just, and what I'm getting at is King was going into last year as a starter. So was Cole Reagans, and for the first time, actually, all right, here you go. He was a reliever with the Rangers, of course, right? before deadline and everything. So I hear what you're saying though, of like, cool, Michael King kind of getting settled in more. There's more of a like it looks like Reagan's is further along in that development. And there's more of a chance for King. Either way, I love them both, so that's cool.
Yeah, that is cool. and you love him more than the next guy, who rounds out your top 10 and is a name we're used to hearing much higher in these rankings. And we'll get to him after this break. So your 10th starting pitcher is somebody who some people had as their first starting pitcher last year. It's Garrett Cole. Why are we down on Garrett Cole? I mean, still a top 10 arm, but why do we not believe that he is the guy he was last year? Is it just injury, or did you see something else last year that concerned you a little bit?
Man, do I really have Garrett Cole at 10? I mean, okay, so
I have Garrett Cole at 12, if that matters.
So here's the thing, guys. Now I think it gets really more confusing. Like Gilbert Reagan's King, I was like, okay, cool. I got that done. Nice. And then it gets to be this whole section of they're like 3 guys who I think are just going to be every 5 days, going to be going, 180 innings essentially for the season for winning clubs. And we feel good about their ratios and they should have good strikeouts and everything's cool. Then you get a collection of these high strikeout rate guys, but not necessarily high volume arms with big questions, but we all love them. And I'm even looking at the ADP of them. You have in that section, it's like your Chris Sale and your Blake Snell and your Dylan Cease, your Joe Ryan and your Glasnow and your Imanaga. Like, I think I want to like them, but they all have such clear warts. Mm-hmm. And then you have the tier after that. I call it the Holly tier, which are all the other like, hey, cool, you're going to be good for my teams and going every 5 days or so, but it doesn't quite have that extra hint of, hey, you have a chance of a 2.6 ERA with a 105 whip and a 25% K rate. It's more like, all right, I trust you to be like a 110 whip and 110, 115, be there for like a 3.4 ERA or something with a strikeout an inning. That's what that one is. So I guess I have Cole here. I mean, I had a very negative review of him.
Yeah.
That his fastball is getting worse. His slider was struggling a lot last year, and it turned into the curveball game a bit more so than the slider. And watching him, it didn't feel like Garrett Cole. It didn't feel like the guy who's just, give me the ball, I'm going to strike you out. And that stinks. I hate that. And those who are worried about his about his elbow, saying he's already injured, he's not. There was no tear in his elbow, in his UCL. There was none. It was inflammation. It was swelling. And talking to Stephen Lyman about this made me feel much better about him, saying, look, it's swelling. It's not, that happens all the time. You can go through it, but if you just give it proper rest, you're okay. And guess what? He came back and made all 17 starts, right? Okay. I wouldn't really worry about him being re-injured, and I thought I would be at first, and I'm not. So Garrett Cole should be a very productive pitcher this year. 3.41 ERA, 113 whip. I'm not excited, but at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, you should still be very good and productive. I would hope that the slider does return to form in some way. The break on it is a little different, and he brought it back during the year a bit. It's strange. I hope the slider is there in full. He needs it. The four-seamer isn't missing as many bats as he used to with sticky stuff, but still is a very effective pitch. Yes. It did lower its ICR overall last year. The cutter has been a good addition. He seems just like a good packaged pitcher of like, yeah, you're going to get a lot of wins from me. You're going to get more than a strikeout an inning. You're going to have a low whip still. Like, Garrett Cole's still very good, so I have him here at this moment. I might not in a week. I might get convinced to put Tyler Glasnow up here, or I don't know. You guys can't convince me to put Blake Snell here. I can't do it. I just can't do it. All right. Chris Sale is, I know I've been talking about injury stuff, but like that was a ridiculous season of his absolute peak that I don't think anyone could have ever predicted. Not even Eric Samolsky, and he was high on him.
Yeah. And
he is hurt now. And like, I mean, fine, maybe he's healthy now, but we can't.
Yeah.
So
For
yeah,
me, the
that's where I'm
Cole thing just comes down to, as you pointed out, like the fastball is not as good as it was historically, which is not a shock for a pitcher who's getting older and needs to reinvent himself. We saw Scherzer have to do this, right, as a power pitcher who had to deepen the arsenal and learn how to kind of mix and match and attack. And that's not saying Cole can't do that. And that's not saying Cole can't be effective doing that. What it's saying is the overpowering version of Garrett Cole might not come back again. The guy who
right.
was like one of the top 5 starting pitchers for fantasy, locked and loaded every year, that outcome may not be there. You're still going to get a really good starting pitcher on a good team, but he's just going to be a different kind of pitcher. And so I have him 12. Maybe that's low. I had to have guys I think just have a little bit more upside ahead of him, including some guys we'll get to in the next episode. But yeah, Garrett Cole, totally fine. Maybe trending toward like the steady, boring veteran as opposed to the kind of like, sexy upside guy. But there's nothing wrong with dependable. And Garrett Cole is
And
probably
here's the
going to
thing.
remain that.
I'm seeing an NFBC ADP, which I don't like to look at for my rankings, and I don't let them affect it at all. Just so you guys know. But right now I'm seeing Yoshinobu Yamamoto ahead of Garrett Cole, and I can't do that, guys.
I have him ahead of Garrett Cole.
I can't do that because I don't think he's going to go 170, 180 innings. And it's also a curveball as his real number 2. The splitter, sure, is more of a put away offering than it is like, cool, all right, I'm going to go fastball splitter. It's more fastball curve. And that curve is kind of weird. It's not really the big slider that we want to see from a number 2 pitch normally, right? It's a stabilizer and it can get hit pretty hard at times. Meanwhile, the 4-seamer that should be upstairs to prevent hard contact is not being thrown upstairs. And
we gotta, you're giving away all the secrets. You're giving it away.
Well, I mean, you don't know when I have Yamamoto.
Well, I know it's not in this episode. That I know.
Well, I mean, that was number 10. That was it.
Yeah, that was it. It's time to go. We got to get the people. We got to get the people coming back for more. We can't just keep giving them free info.
No.
We'll give you more free info on the next episode. But that's going to do it for the top 10 here. I am Eric Smolsky, the Pelican.
I'm Nick Pollock, the Lion.
And we'll see you outside the top 10 on the next episode of On the Corner. I've got a heart out. Like 340-ish. That's the only reason.
Perfect. Let's go.
Speeding you through.
Let's go to top 20 then.
Okay. Hello and welcome to On the Corner, the official podcast of pitcherlist.com. I'm your host, Eric Smolsky, joined on our journey through his top 100 by Nick Pollock. Nick, we are outside of the top 10 now, but we're going to keep going. I thought you might say something there.
Oh, no.
Okay.
You sound like it had a good flow, and I'm like, man, I'm just going to let the guy cook.
I was queuing it up. I was queuing it up for you.
Whatever. This is on me.
Speak to the people. Hi, people.
Top 10 is done ish because the number 10, I don't know. And this is really like, I have it in tiers in a way, but I'm realizing like, no. Logan Gilbert, Cole Reagans, and Michael King are their own little mini tier. They have to be the way I'm talking about this. So with Garrett Cole, I'm looking at his teammate, Max Fried, and I'm wondering, do I like Max Fried more than Garrett Cole this year? And I might, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I have them in the same tier. I have Max Fried at the end of the tier. It's 3 spots below Garrett Cole. But again, we've talked about this a lot with tiers. It's kind of like, you pick your poison a little bit.
Right.
So Max Fried right now is your number 11. We should say the tier that you have them in is Ace is going to ace. That tier started with number 7, Logan Gilbert, and number 8, Cole Reagans, number 9, Michael King, number 10, Garrett Cole. That includes number 11, Max Fried, and the number 12 pitcher we'll get to next. But why are you debating liking Max Fried more than Garrett Cole?
Because I feel that Max Fried is just such a good ratio pitcher. And he had a 23% strikeout rate last year. I think it should be better once the changeup gets back into form. It used to be back into form as a lefty with a changeup. Oh my gosh. But I don't know. It just all makes sense to me. And last year we saw Max Fried in a weird situation where he got hurt and came back midway. And if you don't know Max Fried, he's someone who needs about 3 starts to get back into rhythm. So beginning of the year, rough for 3 starts, and then an ace essentially, and then gets hurt, and then comes back. And what do you know? He needs 3 starts again, and then ramps back up. So if you remove that, there you go. Much better performance overall. Done. Easy. Max Fried's worst whip in 5 years was last season with a 116. That was also his worst ERA with a 325. And that's just not what we're going to see. I'm sorry. He's not going to have an 8% walk rate. This is Max Fried. He's so good commanding his fastballs with cut action on the 4-seamer, sinkers inside to lefties, big curveball, slider. It's that changeup that really puts him onto another level. And I think he's going to have that again against or with the Yankees against right-handers. He's just such a stable, amazing pitcher. And the way I see Garrett Cole versus him, Fried has more options, more ways to manipulate the ball and to get his outs, while Cole is reliant on that velocity, reliant on that slider. And it's why I'm so close on the two. Garrett Cole is still there at the moment. So that's why I have him one above, and there is more of a strikeout upside with Cole, obviously, to hit back at 26 or so and above, while it's more like 25 or so is what you're hoping for from Max Fried. Still, he's really good. And moving to New York is actually beneficial because the only negative for pitchers is the right field porch. But Fried doesn't allow fly balls. He's not a fly ball guy. He's a ground ball guy. So the fly balls that he does allow, that means that fewer of them would go out theoretically, because you do have it benefiting him everywhere but right field. I'm a fan of this. I think that I think Fried is really going to soar in New York.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, he's inside my top 15. I'm obviously high on him as well. You know, the forearm he's missed some time with it in the past, so I think it's knocked into the innings count, and like maybe it actually one time actually comes back to bite him. But again, we're not predicting injury in that sense. I don't think he's any more injury prone than anybody else.
I do want to mention it was left forearm neuritis, which is not the tear, at least this past year in 2024. So it wasn't a showcase of his form that made him miss time in 2023. This is not that, which means it's not a re-tear of the forearm or anything, or the UCL. Okay. Mm-hmm. So anytime it's not a tear, you should be really happy.
You feel happy anytime it's not a tear. We feel happy. And that's, I mean, obviously if I was more concerned, I would not have him inside of my top 15. And again, he's moving from, people are like, oh, Yankee Stadium. Well, Truist Park isn't exactly a pitcher friendly park either. So I'm not really worried about the change in park for him as well.
Yeah, man. I'm seeing it now. Like, I'm so high on Max Fried relative to everybody. And
you are.
Man.
But I'm not.
Maybe the K rate is the thing that might be
so.
sending me off, but or being different. But the thing is, honestly, I see a 325 ERA. I'm like, no, he's gonna be like a 3 underneath that. And it's like, man, no one else does this. So, oh boy, we'll see.
Oh man, what are we gonna do? Who rounds out this tier? Who rounds out this ace is gonna ace tier? Your number 12 starting pitcher.
Well, okay, so now I'm like, everybody, hey, I understand George Kirby. All right, I've been pretty down on him because George Kirby to me, like, what is his best thing? Okay, righties, 20% swing strike rate. That's cool, but it's also first percentile called strike rate because they swing so much. Mm-hmm. They swing so much at this fastball, 62%. It's the highest swing rate on a 4-seamer, and they have 43% ICR on it. Right? Guys are fastball hunting against him. He throws a 30% of the time. He did incorporate a sinker, which I think helped plenty. 35% usage against righties and 31% ICR. He doesn't get it inside enough, if you ask me. He still kind of keeps it a little bit too much in the middle because he has to throw strikes all the time. And that's why you still have that damage against 4-seamers. If you have the sinker utilized more than the 4-seamer, right, you should have a better result on the fastball than the 4-seamer. And you're not seeing that quite yet, which is a little annoying. The slider to me also, I want to believe that George Kirby is this guy that can put the ball anywhere he wants. But dang, 14% swing strike rate on a slider? Like, that can't be it. Something's got to change there because that's just not good enough. If we really want George Kirby to be this stud pitcher, that's 23% K rate last year, the 3.53 ERA, which I think is deserved because he's not a hit suppressor. He is good at not throwing walks at 3% rate, but If you're allowing hits in the same rate, you're going to have a worse ERA, because instead of a walk, which is no one advances an extra than one, you're going to have those as hits, which are going to allow the guy on second to score, which is why you have a 71 and a 72% left on base rate, right? It's not great in this way. And I wish there was something I can point to, be like, that is the filth. That is the thing that is going to just save his entire arsenal. And it's not quite there. And it's driving me up the wall. I want to see it badly. You might think, hey, the splitter showed up. He's got this new splitter. That's really cool. 55% strike rate. 43% ICR. He threw in 2 strike counts. He threw 38% of the time that George Kirby threw a splitter, it was in a 2 strike count. And guess what? 14% put away rate. No, it was not working against lefties. Not it. Meanwhile, the sinker, not good at all, but the 4-seamer works really well against lefties. So fine. I guess that's okay. This is a ramble because I'm just like, you're fine, George Kirby. Right. And at least with like Max Fried and Cole, I can see the 25% K rate. I can see the hit suppression as well. But with Kirby, especially when you're not in T-Mobile Park, it gets worse. And I want to believe that it'll get better, but I don't know. He's not like an extension guy. It's 6.5. It's a relatively steep vertical approach angle. It's not a good fastball. IVB is 15, and that's not good. 96 miles per hour. That's the good part. It's because he locates it. So how far can you get on that? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
yes. It is the same. It's interesting. It is the relative safe consistency that we saw get like Logan Gilbert ranked 11th or 12th overall last year, because you're like, you're going to get innings and you're not going to get a lot of strikeouts, but you're going to get great ratios. Logan Webb. And Logan Webb wound up like the 30th ranked starter.
Right.
That's not going to say that George Kirby is going to do that. But yeah, if we have a guy where like the volume of 190 plus innings with elite ratios is going to carry him, and then you see that like, oh, well, there was a little regression in the ratios last year, and well, maybe he doesn't develop the way that we thought he would, and then you're kind of like, okay, maybe you are looking at the 15th ranked starter. That's something that I'm going to need to consider, because I have him currently ranked 10th. And you are making me think that maybe that is too high.
Like the problem is that after this, I have all my fun, like, who knows? It could be this guy kind of guys. And do I want to put George Kirby ahead of that or behind that? And I couldn't decide. Yeah. So I said ahead of it, because I'm going to say that George Kirby is going to develop something. Right. But
ahead of it makes some sense. But let's talk about those guys, and we'll see. And we'll talk about those guys after this break. Let's talk about your starting pitcher, number 13. I want to point something out to you before we get into this. And I understand that the injury risks that come with this pitcher mean that you can place him on the IL. You can pick up another player. He's going to be on the mound when he's healthy. That's something that you have talked about a lot. I will just say, last year, this starting pitcher threw for a career high in innings. He was on the World Series champion. So career high innings in the best team context you could possibly get. He finished the season as the 20th ranked starting pitcher, according to Fangraphs Player Rater. Obviously, you can pick up somebody when they go on the IL and use them in your spot. But this player's peak year was basically 20th ranked starting pitcher. You have Tyler Glasnow as your 13th ranked starting pitcher.
I mean, okay, so peak year is interesting. It's 120 innings and 134 the last 2 years from Tyler Glasnow. You can also say that, hey, at 349 ERA is not necessarily the peak that we think for Tyler Glasnow as well, moving forward. He also got absurdly unlucky when it came to wins. I mean, it was ridiculous. He had 9 wins, 9-6 record. If you had Tyler Glasnow, there was a time, I think it was like 1 win in like a month or so, something like that. And as we all know with Player Rater, it's all about wins. Having 9 wins, and that was 11 or so. He wouldn't be 20th. He'd be maybe 14th, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, that sounds great. He's told me it was the 20th, and then I also get someone to replace him, that's amazing
That's
for
true.
a third of the season. A third, because it's 22 starts for Tyler Glasnow, which means that, okay, at 11, it's 33. There you go. That's so much production that you get. To me, it's all about where he is in the spring. I'm probably going to push him up to 7 if he's good to go in the spring. That's just what I'm going to do and put him into the studs category. I have the same exact argument that I had with Jacob deGrom. Just be like, guys, you're going to want this. And then when he gets hurt, you replace it. And like, just be happy you get that, because everyone else that we're talking about right now, I can't sit here and guarantee you that you're getting an SP1. I can't. I can tell you that you are getting one from Tyler Glasnow when he pitches.
Yeah, I've reached the point where it's like you have that friend who continuously does things that make you apologize to other people for him, and you keep finding a way to like defend, well, he's going through this, or he's, and I just, the amount of times that I've been like, listen, I know he hasn't thrown a lot of innings, but this and this year he's like, well, I'm working on my mechanics to fix my levers and make sure, because that's what's causing a lot of these back issues, which are causing the arm issues. And it's just like, I just don't know that I can keep defending the excuse for him. That being said, I have him 24th right now. That being said, if he comes to spring and looks healthy and looks like, okay, he ended the year hurt, didn't have any sort of surgery or anything like that to fix the issue. So I'm not 100% convinced the issue is fixed. If he looks like the version of Tyler Glasnow we're used to seeing in the spring, I could see myself bumping him up in the Max Fried range, which for me is like 12, 13, 14, where I'm going to get really solid production when he's on the mound. I almost trust Max Fried to be on the mound more than Glasnow. And so I know that Glasnow will have more production, but I think I would just rather take the guy who will be on the mound for more innings and know then I don't even have to worry about playing with the waiver wire when I put Glasnow on the IL. But that would be where I'm seeing him right now for me.
So, I mean, you want to draft like Merrill Kelly then? Or just kidding.
No,
I'm joking. That's a joke just about how many innings and stuff. But no, I mean, I totally get it completely. And I think anyone that sits here and tells you exactly what the right thing is to do is just, they don't know. It's kind of like with Spencer Strider. I was thinking, man, where should I put this guy? Because, do I want the innings of the guys who are in my 20s over this? Or do I want to say, hey, look, I get that open roster spot for the first month or so. And then which is the most valuable time to have a roster spot. And then I get a stud pitcher the rest of the way. But we've talked about this before, where we don't know what we're getting when we come back from it. We haven't seen the stud stuff of like Jacob deGrom or so. So yeah, this one's going to change. I'm pretty sure by the time March 23rd rolls around or whatever it is, because either Glasnow's going to be healthy and going, or he's going to be delayed in some way. If he's delayed in some way, then I'm going to not favor it, because I don't feel comfortable knowing when that delay will be over. But yeah, it's good luck, everyone. It's I mean, look, you win. You come in first, you come in last. What is it? Your first or your last? There it is.
Your first or your last.
That's it.
Yeah, Ricky Bobby. I'd say this is the first one that really kind of shocked me. Your 14th ranked starting pitcher. I have him. Let's see, where do I have him? I have him 20th, but you're still, and I thought that was high. You have Shota Imanaga 14th.
Yeah.
This is your tier of cherry bombs, so still not aces, I guess. But why so high on Imanaga coming off what was a really impressive debut season?
Oh, Shota Imanaga. What I didn't realize is that the sweeper was actually way more effective against lefties than I thought it was. I thought it was really just four-seamer splitter still, and then the sweeper didn't really do much. No, the sweeper was very effective. And then the four-seamer is this super valuable strike pitch. It's not a whiff one, but it's constantly in the zone, and guys just can't figure this one out. And it was like that the entire year. And I also initially thought that I was going to say, okay, he had this amazing run at the beginning of the year that really led to that 2.91 ERA and a 1.02 whip. But then even after that, like, what was it, 1 earned run in the first like 6-7 starts, he was still very good. It was
That's
still
true.
productive the rest of the way. And he had really just 2 games. It was 2 games that were just the worst things ever for Imanaga, and it ruined, the overall line. But even with these 2 games, I believe were like something ridiculous. I can't remember exactly what it was. But it was like 8 runs and 10 runs. It was like the regression hitting all of a sudden. 10 runs against the Mets on the 21st is the one I'm thinking of, and the 7 against the Brewers on the 29th. He still had a 2.91 ERA because he was just that good. And there is some fear that I have of second year for Japanese pitchers. We've seen this before, where they go through the first year and they endure that heavier workload for the first time, and they really see the ramifications of that the next year through injury. Everyone gets injured. I'm kind of throwing that one out the window at this point. I just see a consistent arm who's better than Joe Ryan because he has a better set of secondaries to help. Even though the four-seamer isn't this whiff pitch with Imanaga, we kind of treat it the same of like, cool, four-seamer with a splitter and a slider, right? And you'll see more right-handers to take advantage of that splitter than left-handers. It just works. So yeah, Imanaga, I think, is just a stable guy that surprisingly has better than like a 23% K rate. It's like 25% with a good ERA and ratios, and it's like, or ERA and whip. Let's go.
I have him in a high-end SP2 tier, and the tier above it is these fringe aces of like Pablo Lopez, Dylan Cease, etc. And it might make sense to move Imanaga up to there, but we'll have to.
He has
we'll
97th percentile swing strike rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, everything you're saying makes total sense to me. I'm also, you converted me on your number 15th ranked starter. Last year, you and Eno talked about Mr. Joe Ryan. I have Joe Ryan up at 19th this year, one spot ahead of Imanaga. I'm into Ryan. I know he had the shoulder strain at the end of last year, but he's already throwing bullpens and back to full health. So I think we should feel good that he's coming into the year healthy. He tweaked a lot of his pitch mix last year. He changed the shape of the splitter. He leaned more into the sweeper. I still think, as you've mentioned a lot of times with him, the consistency of his secondaries is still not where we'd like it to be, but now he has a deeper arsenal that there's usually something that's working with the fastball. And I think if those secondaries got more consistent, you're talking about a top 15 starter, which you have him ranked as. I have him just outside, baking in the like risk that they don't actually get more consistent.
Right. So this is really, it's just been so hard trying to figure out what to do with this top 20, because I don't want to make a statement on Joe Ryan. I don't want to make a statement on Imanaga. I guess I'm making a statement on like Blake Snell and Dylan Cease. You guys haven't heard yet.
I think that's more of what it is.
Yeah. And we'll talk about them in the next episode, but so stay tuned for that one. That's just my own personal bias. And honestly, as I've been thinking more and more about it, I might be moving Cease up. Maybe we'll see. We'll get there. But with Joe Ryan, he's someone that it's a home run problem, right? 1.27 home run per 9 last year, but it was 1.78 the year before, 1.22 before that. He allows home runs. Why? Because he has this four-seamer that is really hard to get on top of, because it's a 1.8 height adjusted VA. It's one of the flattest fastballs in the majors, and not the flattest. And when guys are actually able to get that timing right, they're able to launch it because he throws it upstairs. And really finding the nullifier is the difficult part. Is he going to have a cutter in here? Is it a splitter? Is it a sweeper? What is it? What's interesting is he actually has the Nick Pivetta problem. And I hope that he's aware of it, that he throws a sweeper with his four-seamer. And the reason you don't want to do that generally is because a four-seamer you want to get on top of more, and a sweeper you want to get lower arm angle with. And what I did notice is that he has reverse splits on his four-seamer. He might not have it the same way as Pivetta, because Pivetta is much more over the top than Joe Ryan is. Joe Ryan has a much flatter arm release, and that's why you have that high adjusted VAA. Still, I do wonder if batters are getting a good read on the sweeper relative to his four-seamer, and because of that, they are attacking the four-seamer a lot better than lefties who don't see the sweeper. They see more of the splitter. So that is something I think that can be adjusted for Joe Ryan. I really wish he had something better as his number 2, but man, it's such a consistent four-seamer that he just is able to throw in the zone and limit walks. He's not a walk-prone guy. 4% walk rate last year, and he doesn't allow hits. Normally what you see like with George Kirby is that you see that low walk per nine, that low walk rate with a higher hit per nine because you have to make a sacrifice somewhere. But Joe Ryan has a 7 hit per nine. He had a 7 hit per nine in 2022. The only bad one was 2023. And he gets progressively better with his fastball each year. It's more velocity as well. So I see Joe Ryan, and I see someone that if he wasn't injured at the end of the year, which seems like it's fine and we don't need to think about that anymore, then he would actually have had an initial ADP much higher than what we're seeing. And what's so funny to me is like I'm actually looking at this in the corner of my eye right now. Like Max Fried, Glasnow, and Joe Ryan are like outside the top 20, and I'm like, everyone's just thinking, Nick, what are you doing? You're talking about these guys in the top 15 that are outside the top 25 of ADP. And I think Joe Ryan's a strikeout machine,
right?
Who is primed for 180 innings this year. I think that there's one last piece of the puzzle for him to really become like a top 5 starter. And he's showcased every single season that he's getting better and better. You have a K- walk rate that's 23%. It's like one of the best K- walk rates, save for like the studs at the very top.
Right.
It's 27 K rate, 4% walk rate. Like we talk about all these things, projections. That is the most stable correlation year to year for success. Is K- walk rate. We just can't beat it. And I don't know. I just think that Joe Ryan, that's such a good foundation that he should still be very, very productive with a good strikeout rate next year.
Those pitchers going that late are the exact reason why I'm talking about like not taking a pitcher early, like super early in drafts. Is like I may love to have Crochet or I love to have Burns, Wheeler, any of those guys, but I could load up on hitters the first 4 rounds at this rate and get 2 of like Joe Ryan, Imanaga, Joe Ryan, Max Fried, Imanaga, and Pablo Lopez, something like that, and feel really good about the 2 guys at the top and may not have like the legit ace, but I've now loaded up on all of those.
You can make Michael King your SP1.
I have in a lot of places. I have.
That's how you do it.
He goes in the 60s or something. Yeah, Michael King, who was on one of our earlier episodes. We're going through 5 pitchers an episode as we get through Nick's top 100. So make sure you check those out. We are almost done with the top 20. I am Eric Smolsky, the Pelican.
I'm Nick Pollock, the Lion.
And we'll check you on the next episode of On the Corner.
If you want, we can stop it there if you got to go. Yeah.
Is that I can do another one this week too, though, if you want.
Yeah, that might work. Yeah.
You want to you want to chat about it after?
That sounds good,
but I have time. I have time. Like whatever. I'll text you. But I could do another one this week.
It's absolutely bonkers how late, like in this stuff, I'm seeing like Justin Steele's at 130. Justin Steele.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh. Grayson Rodriguez 113. Robbie Ray 171. It's just this is amazing.
Yeah.
Spencer Arrighetti 205. I'd make a rotation out of those guys. Justin Steele's so undervalued right now. Grayson Rodriguez needs a sinker or a cutter.
I've moved him down like closer to 30.
Yeah, 28 for me right now.
Yeah, because I'm like, I'm not going to rank him based on upside again.
Right. There's so many good guys. There's so many good pitchers, guys. And I know thank you guys so much for watching. Your Rankings Plus Weekly streamers carry me to the finals. Nick, thank you. Oh man, Jawar, you're the best. We're gonna do it again this year. And really, if there's one thing to take away from all of these, it's just, guys, just wait. As much as I really want to have Cole Reagans again, I won't this year. It's too bad. But like, it's okay. There are so many. In my rankings, I'm going to change a lot because it's just they're so close. They're so close with so much. So don't sweat too much about it. Just get a handful of them. Have the strategies for where you're targeting. Whoever you get is who you get. There's no like, oh no, I really want that one guy or that guy. Like, no, just don't worry about it. Just like, this is good value this time, and we're gonna get through the rest of it. Find this year's Cold Reagans. Well, that seems like a very aggressive order. I will do what I can. There is no Cole Reagans because Cole Reagans was a very specific thing. That's what everyone wanted me to find. The next Spencer Strider, the next Tarek Skubal, the next Shane Bieber back in the day. The next Spencer Schwallenbach. Like, there are all these different molds, guys. We'll figure it out together.
Who's will.
The next Seth Lugo? I don't know.
It's Seth Lugo again. Season number 2.
Maybe.
Well, no.
But
yeah,
get out of here.
I'll message you in the Discord. We'll figure out another time. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Take care, guys. See
We'll
ya.
check you later. See ya.